Hi everyone, my name is Itishree Mohallick. I'm a BRU21 PhD candidate and Technip FMC is my sponsoring company. So today I'm going to present a part of this research which has been submitted, and the results has been submitted and accepted at ECSEW 2022 conference. And it is regarding the role of shared understanding in collaborative work. So before I start explaining what was done in this project and the results, I would like to provide the research context. So I have been focusing on the context of shared understanding in collaborative work, where most of the collaborative work on the represented collaborative work, where most of the collaborative work can be represented as knowledge collaboration. And as you can see in this slide in the left, knowledge collaboration can be illustrated as this figure. So this is the image of an elephant and 6 blind brothers who are trying to figure out this common or shared object by experiencing different parts of the elephant. So the idea would be then to know together what this shared object is. In this case, the shared object would be the elephant, and everybody, including the 6 blind brothers, would learn a little bit about the elephant as they experience the different parts of the elephant. So often the idea is exactly same in the case of collaborating across different disciplines or organizations, and that's what this example is trying to represent. Because one of the specialists may say during a collaborative work that it is a rope because they might be experiencing the tail of the elephant, whereas the other can say that it is a tree because they are experiencing the leg of the elephant. And that's what we exactly don't want when doing a collaborative work. So we need to have a certain degree of shared understanding for the common object to do so. And this leads to my next slide about design process of complex equipment, which is a subsidiary here. So to understand the complexity of the collaborative design work, we have studied the different work practices in an offshore oil and gas industry in the context of the subsea equipment design. So what is the subsea equipment for our case? It is a subsidiary or Christmas tree, which is very important for controlling the hydrocarbons out of the well. And it's a part of 50 cross 50 meters of metal installation residing at the bottom of the sea in the depth of 50 to 1000 meters or 200 to 1000 meters with valves, chokes and pipes, measurements, sensors and hydraulic control systems, allowing unmanned remotely operating oil and gas production. And I believe that most of you are aware of this, that the challenge remains that every oil well is unique. So then these slides provide a detailed overview of the early stage, because this is the research scope for my PhD. And why then we specifically focus on the early stage? Because we found that we specifically focus on this early stage design part of the process, as this is when design ideas, visions and prototypes have yet to settle, thus maximizing the likelihood of challenges with shared understanding across the different professional, organizational stakeholders involved. So shared understanding is required for such collaborative work not to break down. And the required degree of shared understanding varies with different work practices and activities. And degrees of shared understanding can then be varied from like from significant to moderate and to minimal, which is the most important aspects of this study. Then comes the complexity of shared understanding. So then the challenge with this designing and manufacturing the subsea equipment hinges on the way every oil well is unique, which is that each designed pieces of equipment needs to be tailor-made to the characteristics of that specific oil well, the details of the geographical circumstances, as well as access to the nearby existing production facilities. In short, the design is challenging because there is no given template to start from. And there are both engineering, material, geological and economic concerns to account for, and the design involves extensive dialogue between the EPC providers and the operators and other stakeholders involved. So which leads to our problem statement that then our research context within the within the area of communication and collaboration in the early stage design leads to a research question that then how much shared understanding or what degree of shared understanding is required for such collaborative work. So here we present the 3 findings, whereas the first 2 findings are already present in the literature in the collaborative work. And the findings from the empirics from our case study based research show how the various specialists with diverse domain knowledge from the EPC providers perform the work associated with design, use different technologies to communicate and collaborate across the different stakeholders, decide and conclude the final design solution, and at the same time keeping a close collaboration with the client. Whereas the first 2 degrees of shared understanding represents a conventional approach which is already present in the literatures in the collaborative work. The most interesting aspect of our finding is the presence of the third, that is the minimal overlap of sharedness between the different stakeholders. Going into detail of each degree of shared understanding, we'll first start with the significant one. So here we believe that with a significant degree of sharedness, there is an absolute collaboration between the different stakeholders involved. So the shared meaning presented in most of the early work related to knowledge collaboration assumed a complete overlap of knowledge work across the different communities, which is debatable. And we can achieve that from following different work practices by the use of digital tools, and the traces can be found from the review meetings. And there is also an empirical example given here where through the use of digital tool, how the different team members from design review meeting are gaining a significant level of understanding between each other for the shared or the collaborative work to be done. Coming to the second type of shared understanding, which is modest, here we see that the designer's role in design review meetings and the databases and the various design drawings and models and different prototypes and schematics, how that help the different stakeholders or the different participants to gain a modest level of understanding for their work to be done. And again, it is an example from our empirical study, which is saying that model based design review is helping the different team members to do their design work related to the subsea equipment. And it is also making everyone involved aware that what this task is. Then coming to the next and most interesting aspect of our study, which is then talking about minimal. With this is the last and most interesting findings, which shows that collaborative work as working in an autonomous group. That means groups can work autonomously, or the different stakeholders can work autonomously with a minimal degree of sharedness of understanding. So with this minimal sharedness in collaborative work, the multidisciplinary groups can work autonomously to achieve a common goal without an absolute overlap of knowledge work. Hence, a minimum or no sharedness of understanding is required while performing the design related work practices using the various design tools. So how perceptions and practices differ, this is a perfect example of that different people see different tasks differently, and that also reflect their during their work practices and the use of digital tool. So that's why it states that multiplicity of technology use and the diversity of work practices differs from stakeholder to stakeholder. So then with this, what did we get for practitioners, or what are the practical implications of this result or this study? As we know, I am in the process of this research where I have started with the research and I am in the second step of knowledge building, and we believe that this is part of the new knowledge with this minimal degree of sharedness. and which also can lead to some innovative knowledge in future. So, my position right now is with the knowledge building. So, as I have stated in the right hand side, that designing collaborative platforms entails an understanding of the degree of shared understanding required for particular activities and tasks, and the multiplicity of reality in practice really differs. Thus, we are suggesting not to replace one way of practice with others, but to integrate the more possibilities of difference in practices in any given scenario. So, what can then be taken out of this findings or from this study? So, let us create a list of questions, agree that we discuss how to handle the concerns on that list and the possible actions that might meet those concerns surrounding technology use and work practices in everyday life. So, these are my final words. So, my contribution is twofold. We then extend the understanding of sharedness, which is basically minimal, in collaborative work in early stage design, and we believe that this is the empirical contribution of this study. We also address the gap present in the literature on the need for different degrees of sharedness in collaborative work by discussing issues related to our case study, and suggesting that additional research is required to focus on this minimal overlap. But as every research has some kind of limitations, my research is also not without limitation. I believe that academic findings to practical implementation could be one of the challenge, that how we are going to make use of this knowledge in real time practice. So, this is something we have to really work on. Thank you. As I have stated earlier, this paper is already accepted and soon be published online. And with this, I want to thank you everyone for your attention, and please do give some feedback using this link here. Yeah.